everyone, welcome to my show. Be sure to hit like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube and Twitch for all my exclusive content. Hello again, Star Wars players. We are back here going to do another recorded video today of a GEMPC match taking place in just a few minutes between Advocate, aka Scott Lingerl, and Retwin316, aka Brian Fred. This is game 2 of their matchup. Brian's going to be playing light side against Scott's dark side deck, which should be potentially a very interesting matchup. The first game, Brian was victorious by 19, I believe the difference was. So we're just waiting for the players to get into the lobby here. Oh, Brian's already there, and Scott's there too, so we're just waiting for them to actually put a table up. The first game, Scott was playing his Mind What You Have Learned deck list, and he took on Brian was playing Verge for his objective, but was doing some funny stuff in space and, you know, kind of out cheesing the Mind What You Have Learned deck a little bit, and was able to pull off that win. So the table is up now, right here in the GEMPC. We're just going to wait for Scott to accept, and then we'll see exactly what the players are using. Is Scott going to be using his traditional musicians deck? Can that deck win by 20? It does retrieve quite a bit between the various things that we've seen, but it does also put a lot of cards on the table. Those musicians do tend to pile up. So that could be a reason not to play that type of deck. And we'll see if you pick something different here in just a second. Alright, so the players have finally picked their matchups. And we're starting with Scott's first comment of the game being, see if this wacky idea works. Well, that's always an interesting start. He's going to roll with Endor Operations for his objective. Brian's got Watch Your Step. Scott's playing According to My Design to start the Emperor at the docking bay. Interesting. Sometimes when we see, if you see like an According to My Design, you might almost start him in the bunker right away, because then you could already get that extra ability to set up the effects, and also not expose him. You're also letting your opponent go first by starting According to My Design. You get to download the Emperor to your site. You get 3 effects. Light side goes first. So this used to be really popular when Throne Room was very popular. People would just play this because they're already going first. So you might as well get your Emperor out on the table, get some extra force generation. He did start Endor Shield as one of his 2 effects to limit the icons there. Combat Response to match for pilots and ships. And Establish Control here, getting an extra +1 generation at docking base you occupy. So the Emperor's already there, so he's getting +1 from that, plus the 1 from the Emperor, his own icon. Also lets him get out Korlag or Fondor. So he might be trying to go for Establish Control, get a Force Drain bonus or 2. Brian opting to start with Wackling. I Must Be Glad to Speak, Smuggler's Blues combo, which is the one that basically, instead of I Must Be Allowed to Speak, which used to pull for Luke and Lando and Chewie, now you're doing this one where you're pulling for deploying Corrin, Mara, Mirax, or Talon Card to Tatooine locations. You get to pull cards from your used pile. Also, the big benefit here is opponent may not cancel or modify drains at battlegrounds where you have 2 smugglers. So, no Tarkin's Orders, no Image of the Dark Lord reducing the drain or anything like that going on, as long as you've got 2 smugglers there. And then squadron assignments to match for people. They both have played some interrupts already. I'll just recap that. So Scott played short range fighters, took Saber 1 into hand. Brian played all wings, report in. Scott tried to sense it with the sense uncertain is the future combo. Also, I guess, a benefit of starting the Emperor on the table. Brian played a control tunnel vision to cancel it. Scott played a second sense and uncertain is the future. Brian then played a second control tunnel vision. Oh my god. And then was finally able to get his Millennium Falcon out of his reserve deck and put the all wings to the used pile. All that before either of them have even activated a force, right? Wow, this game is off to kind of the start we would, we're off to the races, I guess, right? And now Brian will activate 8 force. This will be a tough one for Scott to win because he's got to win by 20. Looks like they said lost pile counts in the last game was like 34-1. Brian won by 19, had 1 in lost pile. My head's kind of in the way there. Yeah. And Scott had like 34 cards in lost pile. And when you're playing against Watch Your Step, you're not going to beat them on lost pile counts because they're just going to put a number of their interrupts either out of play or stacked on grabbers. So Scott's going to have to win by 20. An Endor Ops deck with matching pilots and stuff, you're putting a decent amount of cards on the table. And Watch Your Step is known to be pretty resilient in the way that it fights between, again, mitigating things with using interrupts over and over out of the lost pile. So Brian goes and looks for Kessel, which he takes into hand with his objective. He also noticed he had a projection of a Skywalker in there. So he's going to go ahead and use 3 force, use his once per game Walkling pull, take that into hand, shut down this drain at the docking bay. And then he'll pull the grabber shield. Be curious to see if he does anything else here other than potentially just draw and say, go. Doesn't necessarily need to be in a rush to race, putting cards out on the table to put himself into a position where he could potentially get hurt. Now, by using Walkling to pull the projection, sometimes Watch Your Step players will use that to pull the Kessel Run. Brian may already have the Kessel Run, or he might already have the puller for the Kessel Run, because there is another card that pulls it. It's the same card that also pulls Lando, which I'm forgetting the name of at the moment. So let me go into the deck builder and pull that one up. Best Smuggler Around. That's the card we're talking about here. Is the card that also can pull the Kessel Run into hand. Which you will usually see Watch Your Step players running at least 1 copy of. And Brian does just draw a bunch of cards, so again, trying to be conservative here. That's the advantage of winning game 1 of any type of match play scenario. If you win the first game by a decent amount, you can sort of, it dictates your pace of play sometimes in game 2. All right, Scott's going to activate just 9. He's going to take Ominous into hand with the objective. He's going to use Establish Control to deploy Fondor. Get another system out, get himself some extra force activation. He plays Ominous. This is the one that gives you your force drains are +2 at other battleground systems, number of Endor sites you occupy. So if he were to drain at any other system other than Endor, he would be activating, the drain would be +2. So Tatooine would be 4, Fondor would be a drain of 3, whichever system he was at. Then he also plays the Endor Ewok Village here. which is a 1/1 drain +1 site, as long as there's no Ewoks on Endor. Just kind of floating that, I guess. I mean, there is established control is in the deck. I'm sorry, established secret base is in the deck, and I guess that would also potentially pull this. But he happened to get it in hand already, so why not put it out? The only thing I can think of, the advantage to using this would be to convert Hitko's site. If he was thinking that his opponent would be playing that, he'd want to convert their site. It's a 2/1. It's got favorable game text for them. So by just converting it into a 1/1, take an icon away, plus take away their favorable game text. And now we move on to turn 2. So after that blistering start with the interrupt frenzy, both players kind of just settling in a little bit here. Brian's going to deploy Corellia from hand. He's going to use I Must Be Allowed to Speak to pull a Reflections icon location once per game, and he does get the virtual Moss Eisley. Brian's now going to drop a second projection of a Skywalker on the Ewok village. Alright. Now this is a drain +1 site, as long as there's no Ewoks. I don't think he's got any Ewoks, and I'm pretty sure Scott wouldn't be playing any either, but hey, you never know. I'm pretty sure. You can never be too confident. A random Jawa's more likely than an Ewok, but we'll take what we can get. And Brian's just going to pass again. Draw a couple cards up to 12. He's going to stop at 12, even though players sometimes go past that. We've already seen, Scott playing some sense uncertain as to future combos. Could he have multiples of those? Yes. Could he also have a Monarch or an Evader Monarch? Yes. And Brian not wanting to necessarily chance getting his hand manipulated with. Although if that was the case, he should also pull the Throne Back Shield, I think it is. So, no battle plan. The Emperor will get to drain for free over there. He does drain for 1. I don't know if Brian didn't read the site and know that it was a drain +1 or just didn't care. He's reacting to it in the chat now, so I'm thinking he perhaps did not know how it was worded and thought it was just a 1/1 site there. Scott's going to go ahead and deploy Admiral Ozzel into the bunker. Because he controls the bunker now, he can deploy Established Secret Base. Force generation at the Endor system may not be canceled. Once per turn, may download an Endor site. So I'm guessing that's how he was planning on getting the Ewok village. And if opponent controls the bunker, you put it in the used pile. Now, normally we don't see a lot of spies in Watch Your Step anymore. There haven't really been too many over the years. But with this new build running this I Must Be Allowed to Speak combo, Corrin Horn becomes a smuggler, so there at least is a possibility of Corrin should be in the deck. And now there's a pretty strong possibility of him being able to go to the bunker. If Lightside controls the site, they put the effect into the used pile. By putting it into the used pile, it then flips the objective back to the 0 side. While it's on the 7 side, it's got some strong game text. The first part about, where you have a biker scat or ATST, force drains may not be modified or canceled. Probably not going to come into play here, but it's still a pretty solid game text. This is the part that most people use this objective for. Opponent draws no more than 1 battle destiny in each battle. So that's it. Everywhere, no matter what's going on, they get 1 battle destiny. It's like a built-in, limiter, whether it's Imperial Command or Coarse and Rough, the sand effects. Now, Watch Your Step is also typically adding destinies, so because of having 2 smugglers together and ability, they often draw 2, sometimes even 3 battle destinies. So them being all limited to 1 does slow the deck down a little bit. They will get around that a little bit with all wings report in combos. You can also retrieve a Biker Scout during your draw phase. All right. So Scott's going big. He deployed Colonel Jendon in Onyx 1, used the text on Jendon to, when deployed, can get a weapon out to get an SFS cannon here. This is the one that makes your stuff go immediately lost. Then he matched by revealing Black 5 to get DS61 5 here. So this is a maneuver 5. It's immune to less than 4. This one's immune to less than 4. There's also got to be the possibility here that, with these both being ties, that we'll see things like all power to weapons. And he is threatening a drain of 4 here because of the ominous rumors. And he saved plenty of force to fire the gun to make ships immediately lost. So good turn for Scott. Now obviously Brian could potentially, he's got 22 force. I mean, he saved a bunch and he's activating 14. He could go wide, just cover 3 battlegrounds and pull ultimatum. And just ignore this drain of 2, make this from a drain of 4 down to a drain of 2. If he's got Corn Horn, he could attack the bunker and, potentially try and clear out Ozzel and then flip him back and possibly cause some battle damage or overflow in the process. Scott's got 11 cards in hand. You'd like to think he's got at least 1 barrier, if not also possibly a Gick. So Brian matches. He tried to match. He revealed the Pulsar Skate, tried to match, and missed. Then he deployed the Falcon with Han Solo to Corellia for 3 force, dropped Unita to pick up moving to attack position from his lost pile. This is the one that makes your ship completely immune to attrition, and if it happens to be piloted by a Corellian, it's power +2. Now this Han does not draw by himself. Oops, stop it. He adds a Destiny if you've completed a Kessel run, which I guess we're about to see get deployed here. The other possibility, of course, is Brian could just choose to flip. And then he can start playing interrupts from his lost pile, and he could just play a control tunnel vision to cancel this drain at Tatooine. Oh. Looks like we're going to get a revert here. He deployed Kessel, and I guess he clicked the wrong card in his hand. And GEMP doesn't give you an option. When you start to deploy a character, it doesn't give you the option to cancel and not play it. It's like, no, you have to keep finishing the action. So he's going to go ahead and ask for a revert, which Scott does allow. And now I guess he will deploy perhaps Theranet somewhere else. There's the Pulsar Skate with Talon card. That went to Fondor. That does flip the objective now. And Scott will pull the Virtual, a useless gesture shield. Brian's going to play one of his control tunnel visions from the lost pile, which will now get stacked over there. And now he's going to get to go through the remaining 13 cards in his force pile and take anyone he wants into hand. A lot of options he could be picking for here. I wouldn't think he would have put the Kessel out if he didn't have the Kessel run already. But it's possible that's what he was digging for. That maybe it was a card that he saved from a previous turn and knew it was buried far enough down. He's got multiples. Okay. So he drew a Kira for Destiny. There's a Kessel run for Destiny, so that's 7. He's looking for greater than 12 with his total Destinies getting stacked there. He's up to 9 now with Melas there. Just needs a 4. Nope, he gets a 3. That's going to get him to 12 exactly, so he's going to have to stack a 5th card. And it is a Mara Jade. But that'll get him to 13. So there's Theranet aboard the Falcon. We know Scott has at least the Saber 1 in hand for something to come attack that with. Han does add 2 to maneuver, and Theranet does prevent cannons from shooting at it. He cancels the Destiny draw. You just lose a force. So that's a good combo there. 2 smugglers together. He would get a second Destiny draw potentially if he has an all wings that he could play. Chewbacca's going from hand here. Okay, he's going to move over to Kessel as expected. He'll take one of these cards off and send it to his used pile. It's going to take him at least 2 more turns to get to there because you can only take 1 card off per move phase. During each move phase, when he gets down to 1 card, Han Solo here can take it into hand. So his next turn it goes down to 3. I'm sorry, on Scott's turn it'll go down to 3. On his next turn it'll go down to 2. On Scott's turn it would go down to 1. And then he could take that last card into hand to finish it during Scott's move phase. He just has to live that long. He's in a good spot though. He's got Theranet to cancel any weapon destiny draws. He's got moving to attack position to give himself +2 power and make the ship completely immune. So it's a decent position that he's in here. And he does save 3 force. Probably going to see him use 2 of it right here. Curious. Do you have to use it? Is it a May? Your force drains are +2 at up to X equals the number of Endor sites you occupy. So it didn't. It's not a May. It should have just been a drain of 4. But it doesn't say drain of 4. Initiate a force drain of 2. So that's weird. I'm not sure what the interaction is there or what's limiting that drain bonus. That's the battleground site. He's in the bunker. I must be missing something. Or maybe it should have just added it automatically. But maybe it's a May. Maybe it's an optional. You have to click on it. And we didn't get that far yet because Brian canceled it before Scott would have clicked on Ominous. It doesn't say May, so that's what's throwing me off. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. All right, as expected, here comes Baron. All from hand, so he did not match. He looked with Palpatine to see if he could find a Force Lightning, and there was not one there. Perhaps looking to see who else he could match up for, or just checking what destinies are, or seeing if maybe he's got a weapon or something. EPP Vader, Darth Vader with lightsaber, and Grand Admiral Thrawn V are going to make their way to the Tatooine Cantina. So this is another fairly solid little drain he's setting up here. So he's got drains of 2 and 4 potentially, and 1 over here still. Certainly putting himself in a good spot to pile on some damage. Now we're going to get to move phase. Black 11 is going to move over. Brian's going to send the Kira to the used pile. What's he got left on there? I hate when that does that. So there's the Kessel Run. Oh, he's got a Kessel Run stacked on it. That was the problem. I was clicking on the wrong one. So he's got a Kessel Run stacked with Talon cards still and Mara. Yeah. Colonel Jendon stays behind with just the cannon and only 1 force active. You assume he's bluffing the barrier, or not bluffing the barrier. And Scott will pull the battle order shield. I think that's number 4 for him. Scott's certainly in a dominant board position at the moment, but he's put a decent amount of cards on the table to do it. He's got 10 cards in his hand still. We can actually do that now. He's got 10 cards in his hand still, but he's down to just 25 cards face down, and he needs to win by 20. But he's definitely got a strong board position here for sure. Now the question is what does Brian have left? We haven't seen the Outrider yet. We haven't seen the Wild Card yet, which are the two ships that, the two other ships that we normally see Watcher Step decks play. Brian is going to go ahead and pay to drain at Fondor. Again, remember, where you have two battlegrounds, or where you have two smugglers at a battleground, opponent may not cancel or modify force drains. So this Fondor, which is a drain -1, that doesn't count. You can't do it because of that card. So this is actually a drain of 2 at Fondor. Scott's going to lose another sense from hand since he can no longer play it because Brian is on the flip side of his objective. And a comm scan detection as well. Now, if Scott needs to move away, he can move a card first, run away with the Falcon, and then on his next turn, if he lives, he can return to Kessel during his move phase, put the 4th card to the used pile, pick up the 5th card, and finish the Kessel run. Just might take him a little longer to do it. All right, we see a Luke Skywalker Rebel Scout come down in front of the Emperor. That's going to give him 3 battlegrounds. He's going to pull Ultimatum now to try and limit some of the force loss. We'll see if he also potentially wants to battle and try and clear this Emperor. He's ahead on power, 7-4. Doesn't have a weapon, though. But he could just potentially be trying to do some damage output here. Or just take a card off the table. Nope. We're just going to go to move phase. He's going to send Talon card to the used pile. I would expect to see the Falcon move away here. And it does move to Tatooine. So he'll slide over to Tatooine. The gun isn't scary because of Theron Net. And he can, if he's got another control television, he can cancel the drain at Kessel, but most likely he played the ultimatum. So he's going to limit this to just a loss of 2. So he's looking at 2 here in the Cantina and 2 here at Kessel for a total loss of 4. He'll draw a couple cards and kind of reset his hand and figure out what to do next. See what else Scott might have for a ground package to come after Luke. Even if Brian just forces him to commit more cards to the table, he's still achieving his overall goal, which is to get Scott down under 20 life force. If you're Scott, you're looking for an opportunity here to, do some battle damage, cause some overflow, or at least start clearing some stuff off the table. We know Brian's got the moving to attack position in hand. He can cancel the weapon destiny here, so unless you can completely outpower and overwhelm this thing, not literally overwhelm it, but not literally play overwhelmed, but just overwhelm it with power and perhaps multiple battle destiny draws. All right, so Scott drains for 2 in the Cantina. Wedge goes off the top. Nien Num goes off the top. In lieu of draining, if at opponent system, instead of force draining here, it may take 1 card into hand from force pile and reshuffle. So in lieu of draining for 2 at Kessel, he is opting instead to go through his 16 card force pile and choose the best option here and find something to, try and do some serious damage here. And if it was Lord Maul that he just picked up, that's a good one to get. We'll see what kind of outs Brian has up his sleeve for this. Does he have a dodge to move away? Does he just have the Hujix? Scimitar 2 and Captain Jonas making an appearance. He's got some proton bombs to go along with him. There's the Antilles maneuver. Forces opponent to use a force to fire a weapon for remainder of turn, and Starship Weapon Destiny draws are also -1. So if for some reason he does decide he did want to battle here and shoot at the Falcon, well, the Destiny draw would be -1. So he might not even have to use Theronet's text to cancel it. There's a slightly better chance he just might miss. Now, the important part of that, too, is between the Antilles maneuver and Luke's game text, which also requires your opponent to use a force to fire a weapon, he's got to pay 2 to shoot with Maul, to swing Maul's lightsaber at Luke here. So that may impact the way Scott's able to maneuver people around. Does he want to pay 2 to swing? That would leave him with only 4. And he's obviously thinking about it. This Luke also has the benefit of getting power +1 for each Dark Jedi here, so it's only 11 to 8 in this battle. And if you both draw some... Okay, he's going to Force Lightning used first. Okay. I guess he is deciding to go for the swing. We'll see if Brian wants to grab that, cancel that. Nope, he's going to let it go through. So Luke is only defense value 2 now. He is going to pay 2 force now to swing with Maul. This should be a hit unless he draws another character. You go through all that effort and all that work. Okay. He would have missed without the Force Lightning. So Luke's hit. Luke's forfeit 0. Does he have a sniper? Is he just going for overflow here? Most likely just going for the overflow. I have you now. Add some Destiny draws. Would also be pretty exciting. But alas, we have none of that. We just have a draw of 3, which Maul adds 1 to make it a 4. Adds 1 to your Battle Destiny draws here. Brian draws a 2, just the wild card. Is good enough to kill Maul. He'd be down by 5. So he'd either be peeling 5 cards or playing a Hujix. And Scott will lose the Maul, who has no immunity. Well, here's an interesting thing. Scott just played Young Fool, which we'll look at in just a second. If opponent's character present with Emperor was just lost, lose a force, place that character out of play, or do some other stuff. We've seen Scott play Young Fool shenanigans before. Not recently, but we've seen him play it before. And that's going to put Luke out of play. Now, that's not as big of a deal in this particular matchup. I mean, yes, there usually are 2 or 3 Lukes, but Watch Your Step does have a very diverse character base. The way this is sort of geared up here with the sight and the Young Fool stuff, I think it was aimed more towards expecting Brian to play Hitko. But hey, it's still still accomplishes some stuff for him, and then he's going to recirculate and save those remaining 3 force. So in case a battle does happen here, he could shoot at the pulsar skate. It's only maneuver 4. Neither of these pilots add to the maneuver. So pretty strong chance that if there was a battle here and that weapon went off, that it would take out the pulsar skate. I think what we're more likely to see, Brian's going to first pay to drain at Tatooine. He's got plenty of force to do it. I think we'll see Brian perhaps go to Tatooine, maybe even go to Mos Eisley, because the wonderful thing here too is if opponent, oh, it's on this side of the site. I was going to say, if he can just get a battleground site for a turn or two, get the 3 battlegrounds back for ultimatum, and then move over to Kessel and stuff and possibly shift some people around. Scott loses Empire's New Order. Oh my. While none of your ability on table is provided by aliens, retrieve 1 force after each battle in which opponent's alien is lost. That would have been pretty significant in this game. If they lost an Ewok, Elam, or Operative, you actually retrieve 2 force. That, I'm sure, would be a card that Scott would have liked to have back by now. Or have gotten out by now, rather. Alright, so Melas to the Cantina. He's going to block that drain there. I'm sure we're going to see the Falcon go back to Kessel. Yep. He'll send one of the 2 cards used with the text on Kessel Run. I would assume the other Kessel Run to put the 5 back in the deck. And then he'll pick up Mara Jade and put her into hand. That'll complete the Kessel Run. Brian will then retrieve 4 cards. Yep, he sends the Kessel Run used. Han will pick up the last card. That completes the Kessel Run. He will now pay 4. He will retrieve the Hujiks, the Nien Num, the Wedge Antilles, and the Mirax. And now I would expect to see the Pulsar Skate run away. Whether he goes to Tatooine or to Corellia is anyone's guess. I would think Tatooine. He might just go all the way to Kessel and back everybody up. Nope, he's staying. Interesting. Brian's going to start drawing. He's looking for something. Something that's going to help him avoid those cannons, whether it's a few maneuvers or... You can't play Keep Your Eyes Open. I don't think that works on spaceship weapons anyway, but... Yeah, maybe he's got alternatives to fighting, to cancel the drain. I'm sorry, to cancel the battle. He did save 4. He might also have it's a trap to cancel the drain in the Cantina. So he's blocked up all of the battlegrounds. It's just going to be a drain of 1 this turn. As we start turn 5, quick recap, both players have about 25 minutes left on their clock. Scott's got 3 in hand, plus 24 cards face down. Brian's got 12 in hand and 21 cards face down. Brian lost a Luke Skywalker from hand to the drain. Luke's out of play. It's not going to be helpful anymore, so sure, throw it away. Scott looks for a Force Lightning, does not find it, but does find the matching pilot for Saber 3 to go with DS-181. So while he's piloting Saber 3, draws if unable to otherwise, but also opponent may not react to same system, which is one of his benefits. The other thing here, cannons deploy cheaper aboard this particular tie, but also importantly, Baron Fell's text here adds 1 to your total battle destiny for each of your piloted tie interceptors in same battle. Normally we just see Baron adding 1 because he's usually by himself, but now he's got a buddy, so now he's going to be adding 2 to the total if that battle does indeed go through. And now we're going to have some real tough choices for Brian in a minute here in terms of, All right, so he's got the Blast the Door Kid to avoid the battle in the Cantina. That'll exclude everybody. So effectively, instead of losing 2 force to a drain of 2, he's playing a Lost Interrupt and only losing 1 card. And is thankful Scott did not have a first strike. And now we'll see where he wants to battle next. Brian's going to play Transmission Terminated as a used interrupt. Target a starship for remainder of turn. Target may not use tractor beams, fire weapons, or cloak. So we'd assume he's going to target the Colonel Jendon over here. He does. He should have played that sooner. If he had battled here first, that would have been bad. Would have been very bad. He would have just initiated the battle, fired the weapon, and shot down the Pulsar Skate. There's the all-power to weapons. That is going to get grabbed. That's going to be a lot more power, though. He's going to go up to 22 power, completely immune to attrition, and getting 2 battle destiny. Now, in terms of forfeit, right now he's down 15. All right, so he is going to play the moving to attack position to get at least 2 more power back, and also make himself completely immune to attrition. So he's down by 13 now. Han forfeits for 7, and Theranet covers and forfeits for 6. There's Scott drawing another sense. So I'm guessing he was going Emperor start with like 4 or 5 copies of sense just to, cancel all those early first turn interrupt pullers that, again, people like to play. All right, he's going to draw a Saber 4 also as a battle destiny. Brian's going to subtract 1 from it. Then he'll add 2 to the total because of Baron's text. So he's got 29. So Brian's down by 20. If he can all wings here for a 6 and then draw something decent, there you go. 15 plus if he happens to draw a 5, he gets him to 20. He's only down by 9. Lose one of the 2 characters and peel a couple cards, and you're not in terrible shape. He draws a 3. So he's got a total battle destiny of 9, so he loses by 11. Not going to take overflow. The question is going to be unless he doesn't want to lose both pilots. He's already used Unita, so he wouldn't be able to just potentially pick somebody back up and put him right back into his hand. He could lose Han and then peel a couple cards. He could lose Theranet and peel. It's Han and 4, Theranet and 5, or both. Without knowing what else Brian has in his hand, does make this a little tougher to figure out what the right play is. How many other characters does he have left? He just retrieved a bunch of characters last turn, right? He got Wedge, he got Mirax, he got Nien Num back, so he does have a few more characters in the deck. He throws away an all wings from hand, throws away Les Lomi from the used pile that he just drew, along with they're tracking us from the used pile, and he had a Hujix in hand. And there's a Luke from the used pile, and then he is going to lose the Theranet. Okay, so he peeled 5 and then lost Theranet. Will he put Wackling out of play now to retrieve Theranet? He can't play the moving to attack position again this turn. But Chewie forfeits for 8. By the way, in case anyone was wondering what Captain Jonas over here does, once per game you can get proton bombs. That's always fun, but probably not doing that. Or actually, he might be. If he was going hard on thinking who's going to be facing against Hitco. Well, this is only an interior. Well, it's interior exterior, so he could potentially collapse it and kill everybody there. But Jonas's tech's also when forfeited from a TIE SA, which is a TIE bomber. He satisfies all attrition and battle damage against you, so he's a built-in get-out-of-jail-free card. Scott's going to choose to not battle at Fondor and instead just draw a bunch of cards. He draws 3 cards, so now we're right at that critical mass point. Scott's got 20 left down, which is what he needs to win by. He's got 4 cards in hand. All the force drains are blocked up, so Brian's got no damage that he's pushing through this turn. So now we'll just have to see what he's got left in the tank. He can keep blocking this drain. He can play the Blast the Door Kid from the Lost Pile again next turn. That would potentially save him some force there. We know he's got Mara in hand because that's the card he took off the stack at the Kessel run. So she's still around. And if she comes down to Tatooine, that would get him a card out of the used pile, which could be helpful, could be promising. You know, if you're Brian here, maybe you just want to spread. Maybe you just want to try and get to some of these other battleground locations and just start making Scott chase you while getting little bits of damage through. You only have to get him to lose 4 or 5 more cards to win the match. Emperor can't move over. Ozzel's not going to do anything by himself moving. Okay, so he does retrieve Theranet with Wackling. Now I think he's going to deploy Mara and then use his used pile surge to take Theranet into hand. So we should see Mara come down to Tatooine here in just a second. Scott's going to play the turn it off to put a card back, also to play an extra shield, put a 5 back where he can cycle it. He's going to use Talon to look at the top card of his opponent's hand or reserve deck. So he does get a peek. He knows where that card sitting there is, if he's thinking about battling anywhere. Okay, so Mara's going outside. That'll get him a used pile pull, get the Theranet back, or potentially get him one of these other characters, right? Talon card's already down, she's already down, but Corrin or Mirax could still be available. And if he gets one of them, he could then, you know, take one of them into hand, then deploy that one to take another card into hand and get himself a little further ahead. Might have some good options. He already picked a card, but you obviously could have, you know, you could go in there thinking one thing, like, oh, I'm just going to deploy her and go get Theranet back, and then you see something else in hand, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Hang on a second. This could work better. There's Corrin Horn. Okay. So Corrin's going to the bunker. Scott's only got 3 cards left in hand. Now this could be pretty important. Because if he clears the bunker, he sends the established back, which does give Scott one extra card in his deck, but it also flips the objective back to the 0 side. Which would then let Brian start drawing 2 Battle Destiny everywhere. And he does add Captain Lando Calrissian as well. Now Lando's got the text here. Once per game, if you've completed a Kessel run, you can return him to your hand. Also, if a battle's just initiated, you can exchange a card in hand with an Interrupt of Destiny 4 from reserve deck. So if there's something in his reserve deck that happens to be Destiny 4, he could swap them. Put a higher Destiny, put a 5 or a 6 back. Nope, he's just going to do some drawing here. Scott's going to play a close call to subtract 3. Scott does not have a Gick. That's what that tells me. He's playing close call as a lost interrupt to subtract 3. He's trying to keep the damage as low as he can. I guess he wasn't counting on Watch Your Step having any spies. Forgot they can play Core and Horn now, maybe? Not sure. Okay. So that's going to make that Destiny only a 2. And that's the limit. He can't draw the second one because of the objective, so that's all he needs to run with. Maybe that's what he was thinking. Maybe he's saving the Gick for something else. Maybe he's thinking about that. Maybe, yeah. So Endor Shield is suspended, which doesn't really matter at this point in the game anyway. But Established does go back, so it does give Scott an extra card back in his reserve deck. And he doesn't take any overflow here. And he could potentially spread some people around if he wants to. He's going to have to move away from Kessel. Shifts them over to Tatooine. And will he move the Pulsar Skate away too? He's got to move Malos out. Okay. He wouldn't have enough force left to play the Blastador Kid from Lost Pile again. Yeah, he's just going to spread everybody out at this point in time, knowing how close he is to that 20 threshold. Obviously, none of these ships can make it that far. The hyperspeed 3, and then the relocate text on combat response is also 3. So nothing can move here to chase him back to Corellia. So this is a drain, an uncontested drain of 1. And with 2 cards in hand, I mean, it could be another Maul, but it's unlikely Scott's got a character, like he can move somebody to block the drain at the docking bay, but also being able to deploy Mara, unlikely. And then he's going to leave this uncontested as well. So he's looking at potentially 1, 2, at least 3 force loss that he can't really, he may not be able to do much about. And he's got 22 down and 2 in hand, so losing 3 cards is going to put him right at that threshold, and then the following turn, you know, this would probably be enough to finish things up. It is just a drain of 1 at Kessel. Oh, he drained for 3 at Fondor. Okay, so that's where he did the adding, was here. There's the It's a Hit to cancel the drain in the Cantina. So he lost 1 to the Ewok Village. He lost 2 over here at Fondor for a total of 3 cards. And he lost 1 here at Kessel for 4. And then he played the It's a Hit to negate this drain here. And now he's got P59 from hand. Gonna take a shot at Malos. Malas doesn't have any immunity to attrition, so even if he can just... It is the 4. It's the established secret base that just got put back. So good job tracking that. There's 2 force loss that Brian's going to have to eat here. Top deck's the Outrider and an all-wings combo from hand. Battle Destiny's a 5. It's to turn it off that he put back. Now, it doesn't make him forfeit 0 being hit by P-59. Just causes the force loss. So he's not going to get any overflow here. The question is, okay, it's the transmission terminated, so both are going to die. Now he can shuffle a couple of, he can move a ship around over to here to block this at or move these guys over back to Tatooine. However he wants to do this, but he's still going to be looking at, like we said earlier, the drain of 1 at Corellia, the drain of 1 at Mos Eisley, the drain of 1 here inside the bunker. He's got 22 and 1 in hand now for a total of 23. So after he loses those 3 cards, he'll be down to exactly 20. And all Brian has to do is just live through the next turn and drain at least here to take it to 19. And Scott's going to go wide too, try and speed up the damage process. Thrawn moves over to the docking bay. Jendon moves from Fondor in front of the Falcon. He's going to relocate Baron over as well to block this up. He moves Jonas over here to Endor, where he can start doing drains of 2. And now he's going to shuffle some other people around. Saber 3 is going to move over to Fondor. This guy draws by himself, if unable to otherwise. DS615 also draws, if unable to otherwise. So he's pretty much, he's got Destiny everywhere except here at Endor, but Jonas covers all the damage, so he's not in any real danger here. And he is threatening some serious damage. Certainly should win the game with the board position that he's at, but unfortunately probably not going to win by the 20 cards that he needs to take the match. Unfortunately, Watcher Step is just very elusive and has a great resiliency to it between retrieving a few cards, wackling, Kessel Run, playing interrupts multiple times, sort of first sending them to the lost pile and then playing them back out of the lost pile. It's a very resilient deck. Okay. Scott's going to use Brian's going to use that once per game that we were talking about earlier with Lando to pick him up and take him back into hand now. And we could very well see, Lando and Theranet come down here and try and beat up on Thrawn. Brian does activate 13, leaving him with just 2 in reserve deck. Scott's got 3 cards in hand and 20 left face down. He's going to probably pitch the 3 from hand, I would guess, at this point. And just, that's all he can really do. Brian pulls the "don't do that again" shield. Just in case, Scott's got like an always thinking with your stomach up his sleeves. Sometimes you start to think about yourself, what's the worst possible thing that could happen right now? That's probably, certainly one of them, right? Scott loses a force field. I would have drained McCoran Horn first if I was worried about always thinking with your stomach. because he can only do it at an exterior site. He loses an SFS cannon from the top of the deck. That takes him down to 19. I have to imagine at this point in time, it's Lando and somebody else, probably Theranet, going after Thrawn here. Rio Durant, okay. A little Duran Duran action. And Kira. All coming down here. Now, Kira's got the advantage text too. If you just initiated a battle or force drain at a battleground and you've completed a Kessel run, opponent loses a force. So he's going to initiate the battle. He's going to force him to lose a force. It's the short-range fighter combo from hand. And now he's going for the overflow here. But Scott's going to go ahead and just concede the game right now. Not much else that he can really do here. Brian's going to draw 2 Destiny. We just saw what, or they just saw what his, actually they didn't see what the Destinies were, but that transmission terminated should at least be one of them. But he was already up 8-4. Thrawn covers, up to 11, plus a Destiny. Maybe it's 4, 15. You've got 8 and 2 Destiny. Could potentially get more than 15, but even if he doesn't, again, he just shuffles some people around, and next turn, gets a drain of 1 here in and a drain at the docking bay. He kills Thrawn. One of these guys die. Somebody moves, or both of them move in front of Vader to block this. This moves to Kessel to block Black 5. So, congratulations to Brian Fred on doing enough in this game to win the matchup. Congrats to Advocate Scott on a good run, making it this far in the tournament. And thanks to all of you who happen to watch this video. Hopefully we'll do some more of these in the future. And until then, I'll see you around the galaxy.